My mother-in-law poisoned my husband against me for years with lies about affairs that never happened. It took me losing everything to finally expose her manipulation tactics. My name is Rebecca. I'm 34 years old, and 3 months ago, I was sitting in a lawyer's office signing divorce papers while my husband of 8 years refused to even look at me. The thing is, I never cheated. Not once. Not even close. But try telling that to someone whose mother has been whispering poison in their ear since the day you got engaged. It started small. So small I didn't even notice at first. We got married when I was 26. My husband's name was David. He was kind back then. Thoughtful. The type of guy who'd remember that I liked my coffee with 2 sugars and always brought me flowers on random Tuesdays just because. His mother, Patricia, seemed nice enough at our wedding. She smiled in all the photos, hugged me when I became her daughter-in-law, told me she was so happy David found someone like me. I should have known better. My own mother warned me. She pulled me aside at the reception and said Patricia had this look in her eyes. This calculating look. I laughed it off. I was young, in love, stupid. The first incident happened 2 months after the wedding. David came home from having dinner at his mother's house, and he was different. Quiet. He kept looking at me like he was trying to figure something out. When I asked him what was wrong, he said his mother mentioned she saw me having coffee with a man at a cafe downtown. She said we looked very close, very comfortable with each other. I explained it was my colleague Marcus from work. We were discussing a project. David believed me, or at least he said he did. But something shifted that night. Something small but noticeable. A month later, it happened again. Patricia told David she saw me getting into a car with a man who wasn't him, late at night, near a hotel. I was furious when David confronted me. I pulled up my calendar, showed him I was at my book club that night, showed him texts from my friend Jennifer confirming I was there, showed him everything. David apologized, said his mother must have been mistaken, but I could see it, that tiny seed of doubt in his eyes. That's the thing about Patricia's strategy. She never made big accusations, never claimed she saw me kissing someone, or caught me red-handed. Just small observations, little comments, seeds of doubt planted carefully and deliberately. Over the next few years, it got worse. She'd call David at work and say she drove past our house and saw a strange car in the driveway. She'd mention at family dinners that I seemed to dress up a lot for someone who claimed to just be going to the grocery store. She'd point out that I was on my phone quite often and ask innocently if everything was okay. I tried talking to David about it, tried telling him his mother was manipulating him, but that only made things worse. He'd get defensive, say I was being paranoid, say his mother loved us both and was just concerned. The real damage happened slowly. David started questioning everything I did. He'd ask where I was going, who I was with, why I needed to go out. He'd check my phone when he thought I wasn't looking. He'd drive past my work to see if my car was really there. Our marriage became a prison. I felt like I was constantly defending myself against crimes I never committed. I loved David. I really did. But loving someone who doesn't trust you is exhausting. It's like trying to hold water in your hands. No matter how tight you grip, it just slips away. By year 5, I was miserable. David was cold, distant. He barely touched me anymore. We slept in the same bed like strangers. Patricia, meanwhile, was thriving. She'd come over for dinner and act so sweet, so concerned. She'd ask me how I was doing with this pitying look in her eyes, like she knew something I didn't. The breaking point came last year, David's birthday. I planned this whole surprise party for him, invited all his friends and family, spent weeks organizing everything. I wanted to show him I still loved him, that I was still fighting for us. The party was at our house. I spent the entire day cooking and decorating. Everything was perfect. David came home and seemed genuinely happy. For the first time in months, he smiled at me like he used to, like I was still his wife, and not some suspect he was monitoring. Then Patricia arrived. She pulled David aside about an hour into the party. They went into his study. I didn't think much of it at first, but they were in there for 20 minutes, 30, 40. When David came out, his face was stone. He walked right past me, grabbed his coat, and left his own birthday party without saying a word. Everyone was confused. I was humiliated. Patricia stood there with this concerned expression and said maybe he just needed some air. Maybe he was overwhelmed. But I saw it. That flash of satisfaction in her eyes. David didn't come home that night, or the next. He stayed at his mother's house. When he finally came back, he asked for a divorce. I begged him to tell me what Patricia said. He refused, just kept saying he knew the truth now, that he couldn't live with someone who betrayed him, that his mother had proof this time. Proof? What proof? There was no proof because nothing happened. But David wouldn't listen. He moved out 2 weeks later, filed for divorce a month after that. I was devastated. My marriage was over. My husband hated me, and I didn't even know what I was being accused of. I tried calling Patricia, tried confronting her. She never answered, just sent me a text saying she was sorry things didn't work out, but she always knew I wasn't right for her son. That text, that smug, poisonous text, that's what made me decide to fight back. I hired a private investigator. His name was Raymond. He was this older guy with gray hair and tired eyes who'd been doing this for 30 years. I told him everything, about Patricia, about her lies, about how she destroyed my marriage. Raymond listened, nodded, and said he'd seen cases like this before. Mothers who couldn't let go, who saw their sons' wives as competition, who would do anything to maintain control. He said he'd look into it, see what he could find. I didn't hear from him for 3 weeks. Then he called and asked me to come to his office, said he had something to show me. When I got there, Raymond had files spread across his desk, photos, documents, phone records. He looked at me and said I was going to want to sit down. Patricia, it turned out, had been planning this for years, since before David and I even got engaged. Raymond found her diary, actually found her diary. She kept it in a box in her attic, and Raymond had, well, I didn't ask how he got it, but he got it. In this this diary, Patricia wrote everything, every lie she told, every manipulation she planned. She wrote about how she couldn't stand the thought of David choosing me over her, how she needed to make him see I wasn't worthy, how she would slowly poison our marriage until there was nothing left. But that wasn't even the worst part. The worst part was the proof she showed David at his birthday party. Patricia had hired someone to create fake evidence, fake photos of me with some random man, photoshopped to look like we were being intimate. She'd paid someone $5,000 to create these images. She'd doctored phone records to make it look like I'd been texting someone named Michael constantly for months. All fake, every single bit of it. Raymond had proof of the payments, had the name of the guy she hired, had screenshots of their email exchanges where Patricia explicitly told him what she wanted the photos to show. I sat in that office and cried, not because I was sad, because I was so angry I couldn't see straight. This woman destroyed my marriage, made my husband hate me, made me lose years of my life defending myself against lies. And she did it all deliberately, methodically, like it was some kind of project she was working on. Raymond asked me what I wanted to do, said I could go to the police, press charges for fraud or harassment or something, said I could sue her, but I had a better idea. David was still in love with his mother's version of me, the cheater, the liar, the woman who betrayed him. He needed to see the truth, needed to know what his mother really was. I told Raymond to make copies of everything, every page of that diary, every email, every receipt, everything. Then I invited David to meet me, told him I had something he needed to see before we finalized the divorce. He almost didn't come, but curiosity got the better of him. Or maybe some part of him still wanted to believe I was innocent. I don't know. We met at a coffee shop. Neutral territory. David sat across from me with his arms crossed. Wouldn't even drink the coffee I bought him. I slid the folder across the table, told him to look at it. He was suspicious. Asked what it was. I just told him to look. I watched his face as he went through everything. Watched him read his mother's diary entries. Watched him see the emails with the Photoshop guy. Watched him connect all the pieces. His face went from skeptical to confused to horrified. He kept flipping back and forth between pages like he couldn't believe what he was seeing. When he finally looked up at me, there were tears in his eyes. He whispered, "This can't be real." I told him it was. All of it. Every word. His mother had been lying to him for 8 years, destroyed our marriage on purpose, made him hate his own wife for things that never happened. David sat there for a long time, just staring at those papers. I could see his whole world crumbling. Everything he believed about me, about his mother, about the last 8 years of his life. Finally, he asked me why. Why would she do this? I told him the truth. Because she couldn't share him. Because in her mind, no woman would ever be good enough for her son. Because she wanted him all to herself. David's hands were shaking. He asked me what else Raymond found. That's when I showed him the rest. The parts I'd been saving. Patricia hadn't just targeted me. Raymond had dug deeper. Found out Patricia had done this before. With David's brother, Christopher. Christopher had been married 10 years ago to a woman named Amanda. Sweet girl, kindergarten teacher. They were happy. Until Patricia started her campaign. Same pattern. Same lies. Same slow poisoning of the relationship. Christopher divorced Amanda after 3 years. Never remarried. Still lives alone at 42. Raymond tracked Amanda down. She was living in Oregon now. Married to someone else. She told Raymond everything. Said she tried to warn David when he got engaged, but Christopher wouldn't let her contact him. Said the family thought she was just bitter about the divorce. But she wasn't bitter. She was right. David looked like he was going to be sick. He excused himself and went to the bathroom. I sat there for 20 minutes waiting for him to come back. When he did, his eyes were red. He asked me what I wanted. If I wanted revenge. Wanted him to confront his mother. I told him I didn't want revenge. I wanted him to know the truth. What he did with that information was up to him. But here's the thing. I'd already made copies of everything. Sent them to Christopher, to David's sister Emily, to his father Robert, who'd divorced Patricia 15 years ago and remarried. I wanted everyone to know. Wanted the whole family to see what Patricia really was. David left the coffee shop without saying anything else. Just took the folder and walked out. I didn't hear from him for 4 days. Then he called me at 2 in the morning. He was drunk, crying, saying he was sorry, saying he ruined everything, saying his mother was a monster and he was an idiot, and how could he have been so blind? I let him talk, let him get it all out. I didn't forgive him. Not yet, but I listened. He told me he confronted Patricia, brought all the evidence, laid it out on her kitchen table and demanded she explain herself. Patricia denied everything at first, said the diary was fake, said I must have created all of it to manipulate him, but David had the originals, had the payment receipts with her signature, had her handwriting analyzed by an expert Raymond knew. She couldn't deny it anymore, so she changed tactics, started crying, saying she only did it because she loved him, because she was protecting him, because she knew I wasn't right for him, and she was just trying to make him see. David said he left, told her he never wanted to see her again, told her she was poison. But that wasn't even the worst part of the story. The worst part came 3 days after David confronted his mother. Patricia showed up at my apartment. I opened the door and there she was, standing in the hallway, looking smaller than I remembered, older. She asked if she could come in. I should have said no, should have slammed the door in her face, but I was curious, wanted to hear what she possibly could have to say. She sat on my couch, twisted her hands in her lap, and then she told me the real story. Patricia had gotten pregnant with David when she was 19. The father was some college boy who wanted nothing to do with her. She had David alone, raised him alone for 5 years before she met Robert. Robert was older, stable. He married her and adopted David, gave him his last name. They had Christopher and Emily together. Robert was a good father to all 3 kids, but Patricia never got over that feeling of abandonment, of being left alone with a baby baby, of not being enough. She poured everything into David. He was her first, her special one, the one she sacrificed everything for. And she became obsessed with the idea that no one would ever love him like she did. No one would ever be good enough. When David got older and started dating, Patricia would find fault with every girl. Too shallow, too dumb, too ambitious, too lazy. There was always something wrong. Then David met me, and I was different. David actually loved me, talked about marrying me. Patricia could see she was losing control, so she started planning, started her campaign to destroy us before we even got married, because in her twisted mind, if she couldn't have David completely, then no one could. Patricia told me all of this sitting on my couch, tears running down her face, saying she knew it was wrong, but she couldn't stop herself. It had become like an addiction. The lying, the manipulation, the control. She said she was sorry. Actually said she was sorry. I sat there listening to this woman who destroyed my life apologize, and you know what I felt? Nothing. Absolutely nothing. I told her to leave. Told her apology meant nothing. Told her she was sick and she needed help, but I didn't care anymore. Patricia left. I closed the door, and I finally felt free. But the story doesn't end there. It gets weirder. A week later, Christopher called me. We'd never been close. Barely spoke even when I was married to David, but he called me and asked if we could meet. We met at the same coffee shop where I'd shown David the evidence. Christopher looked rough, like he hadn't slept in days. He told me Amanda wasn't the only one. There'd been another girl before Amanda. A girl Christopher dated in college named Rachel. He'd loved her, wanted to marry her. But Rachel broke things off suddenly, said she couldn't do it anymore. Wouldn't explain why. Christopher always thought Rachel just didn't love him enough, but after seeing the evidence I'd compiled on Patricia, he tracked Rachel down, found her on social media, sent her a message. Rachel called him back within an hour. They talked for 3 hours. She told him everything. Patricia had contacted Rachel privately during their relationship, told her Christopher was only with her as a rebound, that he was still in love with his ex, that Rachel was wasting her time. Patricia showed Rachel fake text messages supposedly from Christopher talking to another girl. Rachel believed it, broke up with Christopher, broke his heart, and Patricia never said a word. Christopher sat across from me with tears in his eyes. He said our mother had destroyed every relationship he'd ever had, said he was 35 years old when he met Amanda, and he thought finally he'd found someone his mother approved of, but Patricia never approved. She just got better at hiding it. Christopher asked me what he should do, how to fix this. I told him he couldn't fix it. The relationships were over. The damage was done. All he could do was move forward and never let Patricia back in. He nodded, said he'd already cut her off completely. So had Emily. Emily had called him after seeing the evidence, told him Patricia had tried to interfere in her relationship too, made comments about her fiancé, tried to plant doubts, but Emily's fiancé was more secure than David or Christopher's partners. He didn't fall for it. The family was fractured. Robert, David's father, called me too, apologized for not seeing what Patricia was doing, said he'd noticed she was controlling, but never realized the extent of it, said he should have protected his sons better. I told him it wasn't his fault. Patricia was good at hiding her true nature. She'd fooled everyone. But here's where things get really complicated. David wanted to get back together, started calling me every day, showing up at my work, sending flowers, writing letters, apologizing. Part of me wanted to say yes. We'd been together for 8 years. I'd loved him, built a life with him, and technically, it wasn't his fault. He'd been manipulated too. But another part of me was angry, because David chose to believe his mother over me. For years, he chose to doubt me, question me, make me feel crazy. The manipulation explained why, but it didn't erase what happened, didn't erase the pain, the loneliness, the years I spent defending myself against lies. I told David I needed time, needed space to figure out what I wanted. He said he'd wait forever if that's what it took. Meanwhile, the family drama escalated. Patricia apparently had some kind of breakdown. Emily told me Patricia called her crying, saying everyone abandoned her, saying she was all alone, saying she only ever loved her children, and this is how they repay her. Classic manipulation, classic guilt trip, but none of them fell for it. They'd all seen the evidence, all read the diary. They knew. Patricia tried contacting me again. Emails, texts, even sent me letters, all saying the same thing. She was sorry. She was wrong. She needed forgiveness. She needed her family back. I blocked her number, threw away the letters. I wasn't interested in her redemption arc. 2 months after everything came out, David's lawyer contacted mine. He wanted to stop the divorce proceedings, wanted to try couples therapy, try to rebuild. I thought about it, really thought about it. David had been a good husband before Patricia's poison took full effect. We'd been happy once. Maybe we could be happy again. But then I remembered something that had been bothering me since David first asked for the divorce. When he confronted me initially, when he first said his mother had proof, he was so certain, so absolutely convinced I'd cheated. He didn't question it at all, didn't give me the benefit of the doubt, didn't even show me the evidence and ask me to explain. He just believed his mother, immediately, completely. And that's what I couldn't get past. Because even if Patricia had been manipulating him for years, even if she'd planted seeds of doubt, David still made a choice. He chose to believe the worst of me, chose to see me as someone capable of betrayal, without even asking my side. That's not love. That's not trust. That's not a foundation you can build a marriage on. I told David's lawyer no. We were moving forward with the divorce. David called me that night, begged me to reconsider, said he was different now, said he'd never doubt me again, but I'd already made up my mind. I told him I forgave him. I did. I forgave him for being manipulated, for being controlled, for being his mother's puppet. But I didn't want to be married to him anymore. I didn't want to spend the rest of my life proving I was trustworthy. Didn't want to wonder if every time we had a disagreement, he'd believe someone else over me. David was crying, saying he loved me, saying he'd do anything. But sometimes love isn't enough. Sometimes the damage is too deep. We finalized the divorce 3 weeks later. David didn't fight it, just signed the papers and left. I thought that was the end. Thought I could finally move on, start over. But life had one more twist. Raymond, my private investigator, called me 6 weeks after the divorce was final. Said he had something else I needed to know. Something he'd found while investigating Patricia. I met him at his office again. He looked uncomfortable, kept shifting in his chair. Finally, he just handed me another folder. Inside were medical records. Patricia's medical records. Raymond had, again, I didn't ask how he got them, but he got them. Patricia had been diagnosed with a personality disorder 15 years ago, around the time she divorced Robert. Her psychiatrist had documented everything: the controlling behavior, the manipulation, the inability to maintain healthy relationships, the obsessive attachment to her children. The doctor had recommended intensive therapy, medication, but Patricia refused treatment, told the doctor she didn't need help. There was nothing wrong with her. Everyone else was the problem. Robert had tried to get her help during the divorce, even offered to pay for treatment, but Patricia wouldn't go. Said he was trying to make her look crazy, make her seem like an unfit mother. The courts believed her. She got primary custody of the kids, and Robert could only watch as she continued her pattern of control and manipulation. Raymond said Robert had kept copies of everything, had given them to him when he heard Raymond was investigating Patricia. Said he hoped it would help somehow. I sat there looking at these records, this proof that Patricia was genuinely unwell, that her behavior wasn't just mean or controlling, it was pathological, a documented disorder she refused to acknowledge or treat. And I felt sad. For the first time since this whole nightmare started, I felt sad for Patricia. Not sad enough to forgive her, not sad enough to excuse what she did, but sad that she was so sick and so in denial that she destroyed her own family trying to hold on to them. I asked Raymond what I should do with the records. He said that was up to me, said I could use them if Patricia ever tried to cause trouble again, or I could just file them away and move on. I chose to move on. I'd spent enough time and energy on Patricia. She'd taken enough from me. I wasn't going to let her take any more, but I did send copies to David and Christopher. Thought they should know, should understand that their mother wasn't just mean or manipulative. She was sick, and she needed help they couldn't give her. David called me after he got the records, said it didn't change anything, said he still cut his mother off, but at least now he understood why she was the way she was. Christopher said the same thing, said it gave him some closure, some understanding, but he wasn't going back to her. None of them were. 6 months passed. I moved to a new apartment, started a new job, made new friends, slowly started to feel like myself again. Then one day, out of nowhere, Emily called me. She was crying, said I needed to know something about David. My heart sank. I asked her what happened, if David was okay. She said David was fine physically, but mentally, emotionally, he was falling apart. He'd quit his job, stopped seeing his friends, spent all his time alone in his apartment. Christopher had been checking on him, taking him groceries, making sure he ate, but David was depressed, really depressed, and it was getting worse. Emily said David blamed himself for everything, for believing Patricia, for losing me, for wasting 8 years being suspicious and cold. He couldn't forgive himself. She asked if I would talk to him, just once, just to let him know I didn't hate him. I didn't want to. I'd moved on, built a new life. I didn't want to get dragged back into the drama, but Emily was sobbing on the phone, begging me, saying David was in a really dark place, and she was scared he'd do something terrible. So I agreed. Against my better judgment, I agreed. I met David at a park near his apartment. He looked awful, like he'd lost 20 pounds, dark circles under his eyes, unshaven, wearing clothes that didn't fit right anymore. We sat on a bench, didn't say anything for a while. Then David started talking. He told me everything he'd lost, not just me, but his sense of self, his identity. For years, he'd thought he was this righteous person, thought he was smart enough to see through lies, strong enough to stand up for himself. But Patricia had played him like a puppet, made him dance on her strings without him ever knowing they existed. And now he couldn't trust his own judgment, couldn't trust his own thoughts, couldn't believe anything was real. He said the worst part was looking back at our marriage, remembering all the times I tried to tell him his mother was lying, all the times I begged him to believe me, and he didn't. He chose Patricia over me every single time. David said he didn't expect me to take him back, didn't expect forgiveness. He just wanted me to know he was sorry, truly, deeply sorry, and that if he could go back and change everything, he would. I listened, didn't interrupt, just let him get it all out. When he finished, I took a deep breath, and I told him something I'd been thinking about for months. I told him that yes, Patricia manipulated him. Yes, she lied and schemed and poisoned our marriage, but David was still an adult, still made his own choices, and those choices hurt me in ways I'd never fully recover from. I told him I forgave him for being manipulated, but I didn't forgive him for never fighting for us, for never choosing me, for never giving me the benefit of the doubt, even once in 8 years. David nodded, said he understood, said he didn't deserve forgiveness anyway. Then I told him the most important thing. I told him he needed to forgive himself, not for me, not for us, but for him, because hating himself wouldn't change the past, wouldn't bring back the years we lost, would only destroy what was left of his future. I told him to get help, real help, therapy, treatment, whatever it took to move forward. David asked if we'd ever talk again, if there was any chance, any possibility of being in each other's lives someday. I was honest. I said I didn't know. Maybe someday, years from now, we could be friends, but right now I needed distance, needed to keep building my new life without him in it. He understood, hugged me goodbye, and I walked away. That was 8 months ago. I haven't seen David since. Emily texts me occasionally, says he's doing better, got a new job, started therapy. therapy, going to the gym, rebuilding his life piece by piece. Christopher got back in touch with Amanda. They're friends now, both remarried to other people, but they've found closure in understanding what really happened. Rachel, Christopher's college girlfriend, actually reached out to me. We met for coffee, bonded over being Patricia's victims. We're friends now. She's a lawyer, strong, independent. She said Patricia actually did her a favor because it made her realize she needed to trust herself more than anyone else's opinion. Emily got married, had a beautiful wedding. Patricia wasn't invited. Emily sent her a card explaining why. Never got a response. And Patricia? Last I heard, she moved away to another state. No one in the family knows where exactly and no one's looking. She tried to contact David a few times through mutual acquaintances. He never responded. Some people think I should feel vindicated, should feel satisfied that Patricia lost everything while I got to start over. But I don't feel victorious. I just feel tired, because the truth is, everyone lost in this situation. David lost his wife and his relationship with his mother. Christopher and Emily lost their mother and years of healthy relationships. Patricia lost her entire family, and I lost 8 years of my life defending myself against lies. Lost my marriage, lost the future I'd imagined. You can't really win when someone decides to poison your life with lies. You can survive it. You can expose it. You can move forward, but you can't get back what was taken. I'm dating someone new now. His name is Marcus. Yes, the same Marcus from work that started this whole nightmare. Turns out he'd had feelings for me for years, but never said anything because I was married. When he heard about my divorce, he reached out to check on me. We started as friends, just coffee, then dinners, then more. He's kind, patient, completely different from David. When I told him the whole story about Patricia and the manipulation, he just listened, didn't judge, didn't question, just believed me. That's what trust feels like. I'd forgotten. Marcus knows I have baggage, knows I'm still healing. He doesn't push, doesn't demand, just exists beside me while I figure out who I am after everything. And slowly I'm finding myself again, the version of me that existed before Patricia, before the constant suspicion and defending and proving, the version that laughs easily, trusts openly, loves without fear. I don't know if Marcus and I will last forever. I'm not thinking that far ahead anymore. I'm just thinking about today, about being happy right now, about choosing peace over drama. People ask me sometimes if I regret marrying David, if I wish I'd never met him, and the answer is complicated. I regret the pain, regret the wasted years, regret not seeing Patricia's manipulation sooner, but I don't regret loving David, because that love, even though it ended badly, taught me what I deserve, taught me that trust isn't optional in a relationship, it's everything. And I don't regret exposing Patricia. Some people said I should have just walked away, let it go, but I couldn't. Not when she'd destroyed so many lives, not when she'd faced no consequences for her actions. At least now everyone knows the truth. Christopher knows why his relationships failed. Amanda has closure. Rachel understands what really happened. David knows his mother isn't who he thought she was. The truth doesn't fix everything, doesn't undo the damage, but it's something. It's a foundation to build from. Last week I got an unexpected letter, not from Patricia, from Robert, David's father. He wrote me a long letter apologizing for not protecting me from Patricia, for not seeing the signs, for not doing more to stop her. He said he'd been doing research on her disorder, understanding it better, and he realized there were warning signs even when they were married, things he should have noticed. Robert said he'd started a small support group for family members of people with similar disorders, people who'd been manipulated and controlled and gaslit by someone they loved. He asked if I'd be willing to share my story sometime, help others who were going through similar situations. I thought about it for a long time. Did I really want to relive all of this? Talk about Patricia and her manipulation and everything she put me through? But then I thought about all the women out there right now, dealing with toxic mother-in-laws, being accused of things they didn't do, slowly losing their minds trying to prove their innocence, thinking they're alone, thinking something's wrong with them. So I said yes, I'd share my story, because if it helps even one person recognize the signs, if it helps even one person get out before it's too late, then maybe all of this pain serves some purpose. I spoke at Robert's support group last month. There were about 15 people there, mostly women, a few men, all with similar stories of being targeted by someone's controlling parent. I told them everything, the lies, the manipulation, the fake evidence, the destruction of my marriage, and then I told them how I fought back, how I exposed the truth, how I survived. After the meeting, 3 different women came up to me, told me they were currently going through similar situations, asked for advice on how to document everything, how to protect themselves, how to make their partners see the truth. I gave them Raymond's contact information, told them to start keeping records of everything, every lie, every accusation, every strange coincidence, because if it came down to it, they'd need proof, hard evidence. One woman, her name was Melissa, started crying, said she'd been accused of having an affair for 2 years. Her husband believed his mother over her. She had no proof of her innocence, didn't know what to do. I held her hands, told her she wasn't crazy, told her it wasn't her fault, told her to fight, because sometimes the only way to win against someone like Patricia is to expose them completely, shine a light on their darkness. Melissa hugged me, said thank you, said she'd been feeling so alone, so isolated, so crazy, and knowing someone else had been through it and survived gave her hope. That's when I realized something. Patricia took a lot from me, but she also gave me something. She gave me empathy for others going through this. She gave me strength I didn't know I had. She gave me the ability to help people in ways I never could have before. I'm not grateful for what she did. I'm not one of those people who says everything happens for a reason, and I'm better off now. That's nonsense. I'd take back those 8 years in a heartbeat if I could. But I'm not destroyed. I'm not broken. I survived. And maybe that's enough. David texted me 2 weeks ago. First contact in months. He said he heard I spoke at his father's support group. Said he was proud of me for turning my pain into something helpful. He also said he was moving, taking a job in another city, starting completely over. He said he'd always love me, but he understood we were done. Understood I'd moved on. He just wanted me to know he was okay. He was healing, and he was finally learning to forgive himself. I texted back, told him I was glad, told him he deserved to be happy, told him to take care of himself, and I meant it. I don't love David anymore. Not the way I used to, but I don't hate him either. He was a victim too, just like me, just like Christopher, just like Amanda and Rachel and everyone else Patricia touched. Sometimes I wonder what Patricia's doing now. If she's happy, if she regrets what she did, if she ever got help. But mostly I don't think about her at all. She doesn't deserve space in my mind anymore. She had 8 years. That's enough. I'm living my life now, on my own terms, with people who trust me, who believe in me, who don't need proof of my loyalty because they never doubted in the first place. And maybe that's the real ending to this story. Not revenge, not justice, not even forgiveness. Just moving forward, just choosing peace, just refusing to let someone else's poison continue to infect your life. Patricia tried to destroy me, tried to make me doubt myself, make me feel worthless, make me disappear. But I'm still here, still standing, still whole. And in the end, maybe that's the greatest victory of all.